want you to just get it done. And I know that last weekend before your OSCEs and your exams, like you have better things to do than watch videos. So yeah, that's why we're doing it that way. Yeah, so I think that's all the housekeeping. Oh, the course survey is out. Please do the course survey. Just please do it. It's really disheartening when there's 70+ people in the class and 10 people respond to the survey. And also, if you're somewhat indifferent, please also fill out the survey because it's like if you hated me and you hated this class, you're 100% likely going to fill out that survey. If you love this class and you enjoy my teaching style, you like maybe will fill it out. But if you're indifferent, like you just don't care, you just don't do it. And so it either looks, it just looks very polarizing. And so it's better like if you all do it. Years ago, it was on paper, and you had like the last 10 minutes of the class to do it. So I will endeavor to give you 10 extra minutes next week or something. But right now, we're going to watch a 10-minute video of someone who has excited delirium instead of doing the course survey. So think what you will. I don't think that the course survey even takes 10 minutes, to be honest. They say like 10 minutes. These will vote for all of your classes, because I know year after year I have students coming in and like, oh, I have a problem in this class. I'm like, okay, I'm not the teacher of that class. I'm not in charge of it at all. I know a great many people had some issues with one of the instructors that did the lick test. And many people came to me to talk to me about how they felt like that was unfair, and my answer was, I will listen to you. No problem, I will listen. I enjoy doing that, but I can't do anything about it because I'm not involved in your lab this semester. And anytime you're involved in your lab structure, you have to be instructors. You have to tell them, and you have to name names. And that's not highlighting someone, that's not trying to get someone in trouble. It's literally, we don't know if you don't tell us, and we can't change anything. And so I've had students before be like, well, a lab instructor in a scenario was telling me this, and I didn't like it because whatever. And I'm like, okay, well, who was it? They're like, oh, I don't want to tell. And I'm like, okay, but if you don't tell me, I can't fix the problem. And well, one of the days it was a lab instructor that was cisgender people. I literally said, I'm gonna need you to tell me who it was, so I can go talk to them. Like, well, I don't want them to know. And I was like, honestly, if you think at this point you're like, after you've witnessed this for weeks, then I'm gonna go up to someone and be like, student told me that there was a problem with you. Like, yeah, that's really how I'm going to approach that situation. No. So it would be more like, hey, so, we have a lot of students these days that are using different pronouns, and I noticed, Dave's not giving you a list of the pronouns. It must be really hard for you to remember who uses what, because like all of that is absolutely true. Augusto, on his attendance sheet, will have like names, pronouns, and stuff. Dave will not. And a lot of lab instructors come in and they just don't have that list. So we're working on Dave to change his attendance sheets. But anyway, my point is, I'm not going to go and just directly like call out the person who it was David. David said the thing. And I get it because like students will say to me too, like, well, this person works in Toronto and I want a job in Toronto and I don't want them to like blacklist me because they didn't. Like, they're not going to do any of that, first of all. Half of them do not have the ability to do that, but it's not how it goes down. So don't worry about it, but please do tell us if there is an issue. For me, I will listen. I think I actually am. I think I might be in your lab a little bit next semester. Maybe, we'll see. How are you feeling about OSCEs? So we remember that the fear of unknown is really what the fear you have is right now. First semester OSCEs are always they're not. They're nothing you haven't seen before, and you have been given all the tools you need to be successful in them. Your job is practice, which I have been impressed. I've been seeing a lot of people. There are full-time faculty here late at night more often than you think about it. FYI. And our offices are directly above the lab, and we know there's people in there and there's not. And that atrium, just also so you know, for your own benefit, we can hear you. When you're standing on the second floor, right next to the atrium, it's an atrium. And our offices are next to the atrium. Oh. Yeah, everyone's like, oh wow. I know, I'm not supposed to tell you, so we can just keep listening to your ridiculousness. Most of the time it's the yelling. We know when the paramedic students are around versus like the nursing PSW students. The paramedic students are so loud. Also, whoever designed this building must have been on drugs. Because to think that you could put a library with an atrium and then offices above it. We just always, like, and people will always, it says, don't put your books on this ledge, don't put your books on this ledge. And invariably someone leans on the ledge with papers or something, and then they drop it down the library, and the library hates it. I was a student here and did drop something down into the library and had to go down and get it. And it's like that shame, like, just give it back to me, please. So don't put your stuff on the ledge. Don't lean over that ledge, and be aware that everyone can hear you. So we watched the first one, yes. Okay, so now we're gonna watch the next one. It's a little bit different. Definitely excited delirium.
Autogaming 911.
Hi, something's wrong with my son. I'm in Lebanon City, South Jefferson. I don't know whether he got, he's 29. I don't know whether he got on or something. He's just, very strange.
Okay, does he need an ambulance? What are you reporting?
I don't know. He's just talking and talking and saying he's gonna die, and he's just making like he's on something. I don't know.
Does he live there?
Huh?
Does he live there?
Yes.
You been drinking?
I just got home a little while ago, and took a shower. He was sleeping. I think he must have.
Did he use drugs?
He used to. He hasn't for years. He used to do marijuana. He hasn't for years. I don't know whether. I don't know. I don't know what's happening.
I mean, he keeps yelling and says he's dying. Does he say anything else?
No, he just says, I'm dying, Mom, and he's sitting there naked. He certainly doesn't do that in front of his mother.
Okay, we are dispatching help, okay?
Yep.
I want you to tell me if he does anything else.
Yeah, he's just kind of sitting on the floor screaming.
But you don't know if he's used any drugs?
I don't know.
Okay.
It sure looks like it, but I don't know.
You want to know what about this with it?
No. No. Okay, so usually.
Autogaming 911.
Hi, something's wrong with my son. I'm in Lebanon City, South Jefferson. I don't know whether he got, he's 29. I don't know whether he got on or something. He's just.
Oh no.
That's okay.
I left him in my office.
No worries. Are you going to be here around 12:30?
Yeah, are you in the lab?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry.
No stress.
It's apples. He's picking up apples. It's. Okay, we are going to do this a different way because I'm not. I think I have YouTube link for it. So, you can hear it in the background, right? Yeah.
Autogaming 911.
Hi, something's wrong with my son. I'm in Lebanon City, South Jefferson. I don't know whether he got, I don't know what's happening.
I mean,
9128 and 9218.
Hi, it's okay. It's okay.
As I'm not.
It's okay.
As I'm not. This is the last heartbeat.
It's okay. It's
But
okay.
I'm going to
I understand.
Is it gonna die? But I'm going to. Is it gonna die? But
No,
I'm going
you're
to.
okay.
Is I'm going to die.
91 to restrict
The
traffic.
heart heartbeats, but
It's okay. What is his name? Tim?
die.
Tim, we need to go to the hospital.
But I'm going to
9102,
wow,
have
and
Bull
this
Cross
is
come up
really
to the
good,
address.
because I'm
10:33
not
at
gonna
this
die,
point.
but I'm gonna hear the heartbeat
Yeah.
of
What's his
me
first
saying,
name again?
oh, I'm going to die.
Tim,
But
Tim,
I'm going to lay down on the ground.
Can you lay down
as
for
I'm
me?
going to die, but
Tim,
I'm going to
Tim,
not, and you understand now, and isn't that fucking weird? But I'm going to,
Tim.
is I'm gonna die, but I'm gonna look around, as
Tim.
if I'm gonna die, shivers are gonna kind of running up my
Tim,
side.
it's okay,
And I'm not
ma'am,
gonna
ma'am,
understand,
ma'am.
but you're gonna
At
know
this
what
point,
I'm
just
gonna
put the
mean.
clothes away,
I'm gonna
okay?
lay
This is
on
a
the
reaction to
ground,
something, okay? We'll get him to the hospital. 9102. Advise Gold Cross, I believe we have an excited delivery in case I need them here. Tim, it's okay.
Last time I didn't know this was
Just relax, man. Just relax.
really gonna fart in it, and I'm gonna have in that hand right there, and I'm gonna really fart in it. And this one, wow. And the heartbeat is coming.
We get two to the back and kind of come in that entrance, officers. Okay, in case we have some movement. I eventually, I think what we're gonna do is, if we get those two to the back and get them in here, once we do go hands, they're probably gonna have to go to the feet, and then we'll get them on board. We have the medics ready? Okay,
They're at the sideline.
all right. All right, let's move, okay? All right, just relax. Okay, get the medics up, let's get them on, strapped onto the cot. You guys got your medicines?
Okay, take deep
Are we not gonna do that?
I need you to breathe.
Hey, what's going on?
It's alright, man. You were gonna ask me. You were gonna ask me.
Did you take anything?
No, yeah, Narcan and elbow, or, yeah.
Tim,
You're just gonna do it.
I'm a draw.
I am.
He said she's having mushrooms in the
just get on his legs, lay across his legs there. You wanna go on board with him and then strap him and then get him out, or what do you think?
I think if we can wrap him in this blanket.
I just don't want him to get free if he,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, we get the scoop stretcher, we can do that.
sure, as long as we can secure it to
With
it.
strap, plenty of strap.
I'm gonna grab my balls.
What?
But I gotta grab my balls one last time. It's okay. I can hear this one. It's weird. Even though it's okay, I'm gonna grab my balls. That okay?
Yeah, we gotta get you to the hospital.
No, okay. Please, and I tap my hand. Please, and I tap my hand. Please, and I tap my hand. Please, and I tap my hand.
No, it's okay,
Please,
don't fight.
Please, and I tap my hand. I fought. Please, and I tap my hand. I fought. Please, let me thought.
We're
Please,
gonna-
and I
we're gonna
taught.
get you to the hospital.
Please, and I taught.
Relax.
Please, and I last time I shook and I taught my. Please, please,
Tim, we're
please,
gonna-
please. And last time I, please, and I last time I,
Tim, Tim,
Please,
stop,
last time I grabbed
stop.
my balls when I shook. Please, and last time I grabbed my balls when I shook. Please, and last time I balls when I shook. Please, and last time I grabbed my balls when I shook. Please, and last time I, please, and last time I, please, and last time I, please, and last time I shook and I grabbed my balls. Please, and last time I shook and I grabbed my balls. Please, and last time I shook and I grabbed my balls and I shook. Please, and last time I shook and I grabbed my balls and I.
Yeah, that's
I'm
fine.
gonna turn the bus my arms, turn the bus my arms. I'm gonna turn the bus my arms, turn the bus my arms. I'm gonna turn the bus my arms, turn the bus my arms. No, I'm serious. No, I'm serious. This is what I'm about though. No, I'm serious.
It's okay.
I'm serious. I'm fucking serious. This is what I'm about though. No, I love you guys though.
It's okay. It's all right. It's all right. We're doing good. We're doing good.
Don't kill me. Don't kill me.
Nobody's gonna hurt
This is
you.
what I'm about. This is what I'm about.
Nobody's gonna hurt you.
Come on.
Nobody's gonna hurt you. Just relax. Lay your head back and relax, Tim. Tim, lay your head back and relax. Just, we're good.
Tim, you're right.
Tim, you're gonna hurt yourself.
I don't want to die though.
You're not going to.
Seriously.
We're gonna go to the hospital, bro.
Seriously though.
We're gonna go to the hospital.
No. This is what I'm gonna
Does
do.
that break loose?
This is what I'm gonna die though. No.
Tim, relax. Tim, relax. It's
not
okay. Yes, it is.
Not okay.
It's okay.
It's not okay.
It will be okay. You gotta calm
It's not
down.
okay.
You gotta calm down. You
This
gotta
is gonna
calm
die.
down. No, you're not.
This is gonna die.
We're going to the hospital.
This is gonna die. This is gonna die.
We're going to the
No,
hospital.
no.
Relax.
No, no.
Yeah,
This is
right.
gonna die though. This is gonna die though.
Remember, your mom's all worried about you. Try to relax so we can help you.
Mom!
That ain't gonna.
Don't kill me! I love you, but this is gonna die though.
Okay.
This one! All the meat I've eaten, I forgive myself.
Are we good on those arms?
This is gonna be a minute.
Yeah, it's fine.
Mom! Mom!
Should I do a handcuff also loose in case?
You're questioning
from that?
liar! You liar!
All right.
Liar! 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 You're the one! Liar! You're the one!
Let's get him out of here.
Broke his back with a shovel! Broke his back with a shovel! Grab a shovel! We have a shovel in the backyard! Grab a shovel and poke his back out! No, grab a shovel, poke
You got it?
Yep. I don't want to kill you. You don't want to kill me? I don't want to kill him. Okay, I don't want to kill him, but it's me or you. Oh no, we're...
Okay, so. Mark the video project now. So, that's, again, it's the police, the paramedics show up, and they have them there, but not really doing a whole lot. So what did you guys think?
It's very high energy.
Yeah, he's definitely on something. So, in the video, the mom, in the 911 call, she says that he's done marijuana before, but she doesn't think that that's it. And really quietly, because I've watched it so many times, you can hear at one point the police are like, oh, they think maybe some mushrooms at some point as well. But I don't think that any of that comes from either one of doing these. It can, rarely, but he's really exhibiting more like a PCP-related excited delirium type thing. So probably he's taken something else. Is he rational enough to actually tell you what it was? No. How did you guys feel about the communication with him? Yeah.
Sometimes good, but sometimes I'm not sure if it's effective towards him. Tell him to calm down. I don't know if it's effective that way, but saying it's okay, those are okay.
So I wrote these down. These ones, they say just repeatedly, right? Like, I'm not saying never say them, although calm down has probably never calmed anyone down before ever. But like, relax. When he's saying stop, you can say that as one of those simple instructions for someone who's like high up here. But if you're just like, stop, 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 stop. Okay, it didn't work the first 1 or 2 times. It's not going to like change up what you're doing. And like, it's okay, he says over and over. And I'm not saying, again, not to say it. You can definitely say it. But you notice one of the times he was like, it's okay. He goes, it's not okay! Right? And then the same with like, listen, your mom's worried was probably like one of the actual attempts at therapeutics that they did. And he's like, Mom! Mom! So I like showing videos like this so that you can start to understand how people may react to the things that you say. And as you continue through the program and you're practicing with each other and you're doing scenarios, right now when you do scenarios, we have to program you like as if you are a robot that has never learned anything before. We have to tell you like, okay, if they say this, then you say that. If they do this, and then you do that. By the time you get to 3rd semester, like the competition team students, I'm like, cool, so you have this. And they're like, okay, like what do you, I'm like, no, you get to do it. Just, right, like, you get to show me what the presentation of that looks like, and they get to, and I'm like, and if there's a problem, I will fix it. Like, I'll be like, no, you don't have chest pain, you have whatever. But it gets better. We don't have to like program every tiny little bit of you all the time anymore. And this is one of those ones. Like, when you tell someone that, there's a really good chance that they may freak out. It's the same as last week when she's like, oh, you wouldn't hurt me, I'm a girl. Likely, you might have someone be like, I wouldn't hurt you! Okay. So, there wasn't a lot of communication. I think they definitely could have done a better job with that. Do I think he would have been rational? rational enough. Could they have tried reorienting him to reality? I think so. At points in time, he seemed somewhat lucid. He probably would have reverted back again, but they could have brought him back. He really wanted to touch his balls, and also his heart was going to beat its last beat a lot. So, and they never, like, he was saying all of these things, and they never addressed any of them. So finding out why he thinks his heart is going to beat the last beat and saying to him, no, like, I know you think it's going to beat the last beat, but I know it's not. It's okay, your heart is doing well. Something. They did do a bit of staging, there was a lot of coordination, they took their time, and they needed those restraints. That was all really well done. And especially because they told him to lay down and he just laid down. But notice he laid down and then they restrained him. Because even though right now he's doing what they're asking, that doesn't mean that in 2 seconds when he's having a lucid moment and then he goes back into whatever world he's in, he's not going to just suddenly stand up and punch them out, right? So he was totally restrained. At one point the cops are like, oh, they use his name a lot. Using their name really helps because it helps them, it helps reorient them. So you saw too, pretty quickly he asked again, like, oh, what was his name again? Because using their name is going to really bring them around. And you saw him too with Tim. People will, even if they're out in some world, kind of like, be like, well, what? Generally. So the cops are like, oh, do you have your drugs ready? And then there's like a little conversation, and they're like, oh, we're not doing that. And all I could think to myself was, so this is in the States again, that they didn't have paramedics on scene, they had like the EMTs, the lower ones. And so they probably didn't have drugs. And then later they talk about, another paramedic shows up, and they're like, yeah, we have Narcan and Haldol. And I was like, cool. So, I know you don't know a lot about medications yet, but Narcan reverses opioids. Does he look at all like he's on an opioid? I was like, why? So in Canada, we would not even give it. In the ER, they may just throw everything at it, but, and Haldol would sedate him. We don't carry Haldol in Canada. Well, we don't carry Haldol in Ontario to sedate people. Although now the palliative care paramedicine just came out, we do have Haldol, but only for palliative patients. And it's actually not for sedation, it's for nausea. Yeah, it's great. And PCPs are gonna carry it. So if you go work in a service that has palliative care paramedics, where Halton, every single paramedic is a palliative care paramedic, you will have Haldol, but only for the palliative care. And a bunch of other drugs too. So the only other thing was, I just had this one slide here about Mental Health Act. So remember that there is mental health. Oh, with that last patient, I would have sedated him, just so you know. Like, just because they're able to restrain him, he is going to hurt himself by constantly being tensing up, and as an excited delirium, he's likely to go through that whole thing of he's going to get hyperthermic, he's going to go into metabolic acidosis, and all of this stuff. If I can just sedate him and bring him down, then the chance of him surviving is much better.
What if we started to restrain him with one up and down, like as a solid pushing?
Oh, well, he's not on anything there. Like, he's not on a stretcher or anything.
On the backboard.
So you can't on the backboard either. So when you're doing that one arm up and one arm down, it's purely on the stretcher. Because it's wide enough to do that. If you have to put someone on a backboard or there, they use stretcher straps and just put him around the body and like mummy him. And then they just take, so I've seen this done in the field. Then you just take the stretcher straps and hold them, and the person's body is sideways, like this, and like carry them out that way. But that's usually like the police are carrying, not us. So if the person's a threat to self, threat to others, or unable to care for themselves, the person now has no choice. They're going to be apprehended by the police, transported to the hospital, generally by you. We always want to do the least amount of harm for everyone involved. So we don't just go in guns blazing. I don't just come in with needles in my hands and start sedating people with ketamine. But I can tell you that he would have gotten sedated for his own safety. And everyone else's. Okay, so I think We're gonna do life-altering illnesses first. Okay, so this is a very short kind of section we have. We don't have a lot of time to devote to it, even though it really should be. So after you graduate, it's becoming a 3-year program. There'll be a lot more dedication to care medicine and stuff like that. But right now, we're just going to talk about some differences between acute, chronic, and life-altering illnesses. Talk about curative versus palliative care, and then the psychological effects of having a life-altering illness. So this is very straightforward. An acute illness has rapid onset, severe symptoms, mostly short in duration. It just interrupts your daily functions, so you can't do things like prepare meals, maybe childcare is difficult, you usually take time off of work. It's things like H1N1, COVID, any types of flus, gastroenteritis, which, if you're not sure what that is, it's probably what you think food poisoning is. It's just an upset stomach that's causing vomiting and diarrhea. Generally, 90% of the time when someone says I have food poisoning, they mean they have gastroenteritis. Food poisoning is actually very severe and usually ends up in hospitalization. And so acute illnesses are an inconvenience. Not to say that they can't be life-threatening. Obviously, we know that they can, but then you're moving in towards like a severe acute illness. We're talking about just generally. So someone who eats some food that wasn't kept at a good temperature, they got some nausea and vomiting for a couple days, it makes you feel awful, you can't really do much, and you just take a little bit of time off work and then come back. Chronic illnesses differ in the sense that there are things like rheumatoid arthritis, HIV, cancer. So these are crippling illnesses. This is a cadaver, and these are large tumors on the lobes of the lung that are cancerous. The patient at the bottom left there is HIV positive and has, at this point, is AIDS. And rheumatoid arthritis, which you hear a lot about arthritis, but none of you have actually seen how bad it can get. This is what your hands can move looking like. And so you can basically barely move your hands, barely use them. Imagine also, you're 80 and you've spent your entire life, being a homemaker and knitting and crocheting and doing all of this needlepoint, and now you can't use your hands at all, basically. You can't cook, you can't do anything. So, other chronic illnesses that you're going to do in patho are things like COPD, MS, ALS. They last longer and have significant impact on life. There's life-altering impacts. It changes the way that people live day to day, and it may take them out of their job entirely and definitely change their lifestyle. So other things like diabetes, and then you see here MS and ALS. So symptoms linger. Some may be cured, some may last a lifetime. There's a significant impact with a huge psychological, practical, and physical changes happening. You may end up on a whole regimen of drugs and treatments. It may shorten your lifespan. It may be life-threatening. You will often move through grief stages. So we talked about the Kubler-Ross grief stages. We talked about how it's not just for death, it's also just for any type of loss. So family members may also move through these stages as well, but they may not be in the same stage as the patient. So as they see you deteriorating, they may also be moving through those stages of grief, of the loss of their independence with you, or things like that. And so here we really need genuine care and compassion. So if you look at something like lung disease, so like COPD, this is going to shorten your lifespan. It will probably be the reason for your death. And they're going to go through the various stages of grief. They're going to have, every once in a while, flare-ups of the problem, like being hospitalized. And so here, we talk about, when we say life-altering illnesses, we're talking about exactly what we're saying. It alters your entire life. So you see here that these people are now no longer going to have the mobility or the independence that they used to have. So life-altering illnesses can be chronic illnesses, but they don't have to be. It includes some of them. Most are life-threatening illnesses. You end up with a feeling of powerlessness, a lack of control. They tend to have no control left in their life when they get a diagnosis, so they'll feel angry, worried, anxious. You may see them in denial because they think it can actually happen to them. I know a paramedic who, her father had ALS, and she devoted a lot of her adult life towards the fundraising walks and stuff. And as he continued to deteriorate, she knows that there's a genetic component, and so there's a test that she can take to say whether or not she's likely to have it, and she refuses to take it, which, her choice, right? Some people will choose because they want to know what's going to happen in the future, and some people won't. And that's her thing. She's like, I don't want to know because I don't want to have a ticking time bomb above my head. And I said to her one day, I was like, I mean, you know there still is. Like, it's just, you're like a Schrodinger's box right now. And she said, yeah. And we'll see what happens as time goes on. And so I think, honestly, she ended up compensating, where now she does the Ironmans. Like, and what's the big one that's in Hawaii or whatever? Kona. It's like the big one. Like, she spent like 10 years so that she could qualify for it and do it, and she did. And I was just like, oh, first of all, you're crazy. Good for you. She has a pain room in her house, which is literally like, she's like, today I'm doing an 8-hour bike ride. I'm like, you're gonna ride that bike for the next 8 hours. And she's got like just donuts next to her, and then 12 water bottles lined up, and she's got like a TV and like her little screen that she bikes to, and I'm like, river floats your boat. It's not what's gonna happen in my life, thank you, not 8 hours on the bike. Anyway, so all of this to say, she did go through all of these grieving processes when she found out like her father had this and he was gonna slowly degenerate over the years. He has died now, and she continues to live in this Schrodinger's box. And so, again, this is one of those things as a paramedic, it doesn't matter what your personal belief on it is. If you would choose to take that test or not, it's just something that it's your choice. She's made it, that's fine. So we're going to talk about palliative care. We are only going to scratch the surface on it. So there is so much out there. It's basically like a weekend-long course through Pallium Canada, and you can take it, but they've also shortened it to make it like a 8-hour CME, which also just scratches the surface, and now we're going to do like an hour. So I think you get more moving forward in a different semester, but still not nearly what we need. So who here hears the word palliative care and thinks end of life? Yeah, because that's mostly what we hear it as is end of life. Like that this is what you do right before you're about to die. It's actually not. So you're not curing the illness. The person is going to die. You're not prolonging their life, which is what Western medicine generally does. You're providing comfort to them, but it seeks to improve the quality of life and the quality of life of the families when there's a life-threatening illness. And we're looking at prevention of suffering, relief of suffering, by early identification and assessment and treatment of the pain and other problems. So it's more than just physical, it's the psychosocial and also the spiritual. It's actually active care. So a lot of people view it as choosing to not have care anymore. That is not what it is. So hospice is a facility that affirms life It allows dying as a normal process. Symptom relief is given, and the plan of care includes the patient and the family with the emotional, spiritual, and practical support. But in a hospice, you are going there to die. You are generally end of days. And you're not looking for any active care at that point. Palliative care, actually, the best time to start your palliative care is at the time of your diagnosis with a life-threatening, life-altering illness. So it's if it's understood and utilized properly, it is actually a fantastic thing for patients to have, because you can still be getting treatment while you're actually having also palliative care. So if we go back to this kind of model that Pallium Canada has through the phases of palliative care, we want to identify who can benefit from it, assess the needs and the areas that the patient needs help in, do some advanced care planning, which is code for sign a DNR. But a lot of families don't have this spoken about until the very last minute. And at that point, it may be too late for the patient to say what their wishes actually would be. And so you have no idea yet how many doctors are uncomfortable talking about advanced care planning, and how many times you will go to a house where someone should have a DNR. And as in like, I have stage 4 cancer and have been told I have weeks to live, and they go into cardiac arrest and the family's like, do everything. What do you think is going to be the outcome if you get a ROSC on this patient? You've just, I mean, technically, you did what Western medicine does, and you've extended their life by a couple weeks. But it's going to be painful. It's not going to be enjoyable. They may never actually regain consciousness. And so generally, doctors will have spoken about advanced care planning, but some of them don't like doing it. Palliative care doctors have no problem with it. That's why they're known as palliative care. So then you look at managing the symptoms and the needs of the patient and the family, facilitate the difficult and crucial discussions that the referred patients need. So you have to address the fears of the family members as well. It's a lot of education, because the family members may not understand the seriousness of the situation. They may not understand what is likely to happen. So someone with a brain tumor is going to experience personality changes, because when you start having things press on various different parts of your brain, you change. And a lot of family members may not know that because no one's ever told them, and it ends up being paramedics. Also, you're all about to become educators, just so you know. A huge piece of paramedicine is education that gets lacked at the hospital. I once got called to a woman that had a baby. The baby was 10 weeks old and just wouldn't stop crying. And she's losing her mind because she's tried everything. She's like, there's something wrong with the baby. I've done like, so just say, if you don't know, there's a period of purple crying, it's called. And it's a period of time where the baby might actually just cry. So you have fed it, you have changed it, there's nothing scratching it, there's nothing poking it, it has slept, it has done everything, and it is just crying. And it's like a short period of time. And so she called us for that, and I said, okay. I said, well, you know, the baby is in the period of purple crying, and she's like, what's that? So she was released from the hospital, OB never said anything, family doctor never said anything, and she's like, so you're telling me my baby is fine? And I said, well, I can't say that for certain, I haven't done blood work and things like that. You know, in my head I'm like, yeah, this baby's fine. And so it's that whole education piece. You are going to do that with palliative patients as well, and patients that aren't registered as palliative yet, but should probably have been. And you're going to do a lot of education to family. You're also going to do education about diabetes. When you're going to go to someone's house and it's an elderly lady who's unconscious, you find out her blood sugar is really, really low, and the family tells you, yeah, she hasn't been eating for a few days, she hasn't been feeling well, she's been like some nauseous, vomiting, that's why she's not eating. Okay, like, have you been giving her medications? Well, she's not really taking anything by mouth, so she hasn't been having her pills, but we have definitely been giving her insulin. She's had her insulin every day on time. And you're like, so she's hypoglycemic because you've been giving her the thing that's going to make her, like, she has to still eat. So if you don't totally understand, you will next semester. But the point is, you do not give someone insulin when they're not eating. They have to actually eat. So they've caused the problem, and then you just talk to them and And so instead of going back weeks ago, right, where we said a lot of paramedics would be like stupid people, they're not. They have never been told. And as soon as you start explaining it to them, they're like, oh no, why did no one tell us this? It's because our healthcare system is shattered and they don't have the care that they need. The pharmacist probably thought that the doctor told them, the doctor probably thought that was a pharmacist's problem. Like, no one ever got the education. Which is also why we have community care paramedics now, whose entire job is basically educating the elderly people who call us on a daily basis. And then following them, and then they call us far less. Anyway, we would look at the phases of palliative care. So this is where the diagnosis is, they're ambulatory, and they kind of shift between stable and unstable. So they will have some flare-ups of problems, and then they'll feel a little better, and then they'll go back and forth. As weeks go on, they start to deteriorate. This is what we call transitioning. It's a transitioning period between your last days and your ambulatory phase. And again, you're going to go stable, unstable in this transition. When you're in your last days and you are considered terminal, it doesn't just mean like the last couple days. It can be a little bit longer than that, but it's called end of life. This is usually where people will go into hospice if that's what they wanted. And then after that, palliative care can provide grief care for family members. So generally, in the past years, palliative care has started here. That's why a lot of people think palliative, when they hear palliative, they think end of days. But palliative care actually starts here. And it improves the quality of life for both the patient and the family throughout this entire process. These charts are really interesting, and you will use these charts as you go on and into paramedicine and as you work. There are a couple different trajectories for palliative care. This one is for cancer. So cancer patients will start their diagnosis, great, normal activity, right? A lot of people get diagnosed before they even feel it, sometimes. And so suddenly you're given a cancer diagnosis and it goes on for a while, months to years. You feel fine. Then maybe you have a little dip here where you start to have some sort of issue, some side effects, and then you come back and you're pretty much back to 100%. You're doing really well, everything seems fine, so this is all months to years, depending on where you were in the diagnosis and how rapid it's spreading. And then suddenly it just kind of goes down. The last few months to weeks, there is just a huge rapid decline and then death. So cancer has that kind of trajectory. We see this differs very greatly from someone who has end-stage heart or lung failure. So these are your CHFers, your COPDers, any sort of, well, more than just COPD. So something like if you have anything that causes a lung failure or a heart failure. So you start at 100%, maybe something's happening, and you find out you have a diagnosis, and then you have this very deep dip very, very quickly. This is some sort of exacerbation. So you have, let's use COPD for example. With a COPD exacerbation, you call 911. At that moment, you're basically dying. Medication helps get you better, you get better, and you come back almost to where you were before, but not quite. And then you see a little bit of a decline, and then there's another exacerbation. Maybe this time it's a pneumonia, right? The bronchitis tends to get pneumonia very frequently. So you have another, and you end up in the hospital again. And then you slowly get better. You've been in the hospital for a couple weeks. These are the people that you see that are in and out of the hospital. But you never quite get back to where you were before. There's always a bit of a decline, and then you have another one. And then another decline. You get a little bit worse, and then another one. So the whole point of this one is that you never get back to where you were. So it's just peppered with a bunch of severe exacerbations. And in the last year, you tend to have more of them. So a gradual decline over the years with months where you go, you're fine, and then you'll have some crisis, and more frequently until you die. These patients you see a lot. If you work in the same area, at the same base for a period of time, they're the ones calling you. A few months later, they're calling again, Everyone kind of knows who they are. You see them a lot, and then suddenly you stop seeing them. It's because they died. Very infrequently it's because they moved, but generally someone at your base will be like, hey, you know Fred? Yeah, he died last night. He did that arrest. And then suddenly the call volume in your region, your base has gone down. So that is kind of how that one goes. And then we have dementia and frailty. So there are ways to measure how frail a patient is. You're not going to learn those here. You'll learn them if you become a palliative care paramedic. But dementia and frailty go together because they have a very similar trajectory. And so things like MS or Parkinson's, there's just a steady decline. They never really regain functioning. They'll suffer a few little dips. So you can see here they've got a few little dips, not those deep ones that we ever see with heart failure or COPD. And the patterns are actually predictable. Caregivers can understand where things are going in the future with all of these trajectories. You pretty much know where they are on the trajectory based off of these patterns. You can see they get their diagnosis and years go by and they slowly get worse over years. And in the last few months, it's a pretty steeper decline, but still just kind of, it's almost a straight line with little dips in it until they die. So, the earlier you start palliative care, the more comfortable the patient is, the more supported the patient is. So, does anyone have any questions about palliative care? Because that's pretty much all you're getting this year. Okay. The basic, really what I want you to know is that it is not end-of-life care. It is active care that starts, and the earlier it started, the better. And some of the palliative care that paramedics do isn't, we are giving them new medications to assist between, because there is a palliative care doctor, palliative care nurse, and team, and they're supposed to call them. They're not supposed to go to the hospital, because they don't want to go to the hospital, right? So they're supposed to call them, but sometimes when they call, no one answers, because there's not a lot of palliative care doctors and nurses, and so maybe they're dealing with something else at the time. So sometimes when they have exacerbations, they will call us, and they are registered with palliative care. And previously, we couldn't do a whole lot because we didn't have medications that they could need, or they would go outside of what we could do, and we'd have to haul them to the hospital, and we don't want to do that. Right? They're usually immunocompromised anyway. We don't want to take them to the hospital. It's very painful for them. Maybe they are, only semi-conscious at a good day anyway, and so this is really not good. And their family is like, well, they want to die at home. Generally, they are in the end of days at that point too. And the last thing they wanted was to die in the hospital, and then we're hauling them there. So now, with the palliative care model, we have medications. We can go outside of our normal scope of practice. We can make them comfortable until the palliative care team can come. We write a note in the palliative care booklet of what we did. We leave a message on the machine for the palliative care team that we were there, we did some stuff, and then we leave. We basically become part of the palliative care team. So it's much better. Everyone's a lot less anxious. And I can tell you these calls can take like 4 to 5 hours. Palliative care calls are not going to be fast. They're not going to, sometimes you have to do a lot of education with the family. Some of the medications that are on the list for you to give now require you to stay for like an hour afterwards. So you're not going to be doing these calls fast. On that note, guess what you are going to be doing a lot of? It's not giving meds. Talking! You are going to spend a lot of time talking to the family. You're going to be doing a lot of education pieces on these calls. You are going to show a lot of care and compassion. And so this class just got even more important, because I don't know how many times I've had family members crying on these calls, and they're just thanking me so much for being, they're like, you're so kind, you're so caring, thank you so much. And it's almost like, for me, a palliative care call is almost like a death notification, but it's like a pre-death notification, you understand? And so we're giving the same kind of feeling we would on a death notification, but we're not doing that. What we're doing is saying, literally, I did a call where we thought the morphine we were going to give this patient was going to cause their heart to stop. And the family said they knew they had to give more, but they were worried. And they've got a bit of meds that they keep at home. Like they've got a ton of morphine and stuff. And they're allowed to do it, like they're taught to do it. Family was too scared to do it because they really thought it was going to stop his heart if they gave him any more. And we said, that's fine. We'll give it. But we preemptively said, just so you know, it may stop his heart, you know, and he does have a DNR, he does not wanna be resuscitated. We can stay after we give it, if you're comfortable with that, we can give it, we will stay here with you, we can keep monitoring him. They were super happy about it, and, we did, and it didn't actually, we were surprised. Like an hour later, we're like, he hasn't died.
Still kicking.
And we're like, how long do we stay here? And so at this point, like, we knew that the medication we gave was like leveling out, he was okay, so we did end up leaving. He did die 2 days later, so, you know, like, we don't know everything. There was a chance he may have, you know, so, a lot of talking. Anyway, losses suffered, so, how much have we talked about, yeah?
Sorry, question on top here. Are we ever expected to stay behind, doctors on scene too? Are they ever gonna be on scene?
No, the doctor really doesn't come to the house, unless to sign a death certificate.
Is this in any way associated with, medical assisted suicide?
Oh, that is a whole other can of worms that I didn't put in this course this year. Yes and no. So our community paramedics are going to now be assisting with MAID. Yeah, they're going to be going before. So you get approved for MAID, you get scheduled for it. Community paramedics are going to go to your house and put the IV in, so the doctor can come later and do MAID. If you don't know, MAID is medically assisted death. And it is just a can of worms. And the problem is because there's not enough nurses. So, and I'm like, why doesn't the doctor just do his own IV? I guess the doctors are very busy going around giving aid to people. And so I guess what's happening is they need to know that the patient has the IV in and that it's patent and that everything is working before they come. So that's why they're not doing their own IVs. Anyway, there is actually a doctor in Durham who is doing MAID same day. Like in that day you call, you're like, I want MAID. He's like, great. He comes to your house, you figure it all out, you sign the paperwork, and he's like, that afternoon he does it.
Wow.
Did you wear the Grim Reaper outfit?
No. So it's a legal issue where if you have the mental capacity to say that you want it at that time, and you sign the paperwork, and then you later don't have the mental capacity for it because something changes, like let's say you wait 3 weeks, and now suddenly that dementia is worsened or they're unconscious, now the family can come in and be like, no, we don't want that. But now you have a paper signed saying this is what they wanted. So some people are choosing to wait a few weeks and they're like, literally they're like on the calendar, they're like death day, this one. So, like, it's this day and you're here on the calendar anyway. But other people are like, no, I want it today. So it is, it's a whole thing.
Do they have to talk to like a therapist and all that too?
Do I
Like,
have to? Or
no, like the person that
Oh.
wants the.
I think that they do need to be deemed mentally,
Okay.
yeah. Just so you know, so there's only like certain things that qualify for MAID, but they are adding mental health to it. So, and this is because you never watch the news or listen or read anything. And also Facebook has blocked all of the news now, so you can't get your news from there. So maybe you need to go actually look at real news. They're adding mental health, and that's opening a huge can of worms for a lot of people because they're saying like, if you are depressed and suicidal, you shouldn't be able to say I want to die. Like, they already want to die, and now you're basically saying here's how you can do it. But the government's on it saying like, but you are mentally capable of saying that, and you've chosen that, and you know, there was a big case in the EU where it was twins. Both twins have degenerative eye problems, and they were going blind. They knew they would be blind, and they asked for MAID because they didn't want to be they didn't want to get fully blind. They just wanted to die at that point before they were fully blind, and that case was like one of the first cases, a big thing. Like, it's a case study now on whether or not that should be something that can qualify for MAID versus the person who has ALS who now can't move at all. So, whatever your feelings are on MAID, here, it's happening, and, it's gonna keep going, the train's gonna keep rolling.
Did they find the outcome for that, or no? Like the outcome for the point?
So it wasn't in Canada,
Oh.
and it was in the EU, and they did it.
Oh.
It was legal. It's just that it's really polarizing. And again, this is where we go back to that cultural aspect where a lot of religions would be very against this. And so, again, like, but if that's what you're not. This is where we get into that really difficult situation of respect other people's culture, because you are of a religion that says that this is a terrible, horrible thing that you're doing, and you're now pushing it on someone who doesn't believe these things. And these people are like, I just want to die. But like, who's right? I don't know. The answer is, I don't know. I can't wait. I think when we move to a 3-year program, I think there's gonna be an ethics class, and I'm already like, I'm teaching it. I'm teaching it. And they're like, what? I'm like, me. It's me. I'm calling it. And they're like, what's happening? I'm like, yeah, no, it's done. It's me. Yeah. Okay. Now, losses suffered. We have spoken about this so many times in all of the different ways. It's all about loss. Insert different types of loss here. So people with life-altering illnesses will suffer. Now, their health is gone, independence may be gone, they may have body image issues now, they've lost a lifestyle, they've lost their self-confidence, they tend to lose relationships, and they may have lost sexual functioning. Which is why a lot of people with life-altering illnesses do have mental health issues like depression. Going back to that week when we spoke about that, we said, if you suddenly were at an MBC and found out you're now quadriplegic and you lose all of these things, chances are you may have some mental health issues after that. So, there's a lot of cultural influences here. North Americans generally want to know. The predominant attitude in North Americans is autonomy. They want to know what their condition is. They want to have as much control over their care as possible. Asian, Iranian, Mexican families, oftentimes the family feels that the patient does not need to know their diagnosis, including terminal illness. So you may actually come across this where an elderly lady is not feeling well, they've called 911, and you're trying to do your assessments, your incident history, and the family's calling you over like, and like they go to another room like, yeah, so she has stage 4 lung cancer, that's why she can't breathe. And you're like, okay, does she not know that? They're like, no, don't tell her. And you're like, oh, okay. You're scratching your head because if you're of a culture where, within your culture you would want to know, and this is where we start to have some issues. So, Pallium Canada has this video, and we're going to watch it, and then talk kind of about cultural influences here. I'm not going to watch it, Tiny. Come on. It usually pops up to the screen. Fine. I'm just doing actual YouTube too. I'm doing labor and delivery with the 3rd semester students right now. We're watching a lot of labor and delivery videos, and every time we try to watch one, it's like, you have to be 19 to watch this. Sign in to Google.
The following dramatization presents 2 ill-structured clinical scenarios. It's not intended to model, but rather to promote critical reflection and group discussion on the reality that we are faced with when family expectations conflict with our sense of professional duty and ethical responsibility. As you watch the segment, consider the following questions. What is happening? What issues does it raise? What emotions come to your awareness? What implications does it have for how we practice?
Dr.
Dr. Johnston,
Yes?
I'm Joel Singh, Mrs. Singh's son. You're seeing my mother today, right?
Yes, I am.
I wonder if I might speak with you for a moment about my mother.
Of course. What is it you'd like to talk about?
It's about the cancer. She knows she's sick, but she doesn't know how sick she is. Well, we'd like to keep it that way.
I'm sorry, Mr. Singh, but I don't work that way. She has a right to know about her cancer and her condition. I have to tell her about her treatments and what we can do for her.
But doctor, that's not how we do it in our culture.
I understand, but I have to talk with her. I have about 10 minutes before my next appointment, so let's talk with her now.
Dr. Johnston,
Yes?
I'm Joel Singh, Mrs. Singh's son.
Oh, pleased to meet you.
I was wondering if I might speak with you for a moment about my mother.
Of course. Would you like to talk in private?
If we could, yes.
Okay, there's a room down the hall where we can go. Follow me. Now, Joe, what would you like to talk about?
Mother knows she's ill, but she doesn't know or understand how ill she really is.
But she's been told the tumor was cancer.
Mother doesn't understand English very well, and when the surgeon told her about the illness, we translated for him. We left out the part about it being cancer. We told her that it was a tumor that the surgeon had removed. And now we're afraid she'll figure it out with the doctors like yourself talking to her.
I don't understand. It's my belief that it's important for her to know about her illness, that there are treatments available. And some of those treatments could make her relatively uncomfortable.
Yes, I know. And this may not be easy for you to understand, but in our culture, it is preferred that the patient not be told. It is the duty and the responsibility of the family to look after the patient. We are to see that her journey is as easy as possible. It is a matter of respect and honor.
And you feel that this is what your mother wants?
Yes, this is what she did when her husband was sick with heart failure. It is a long respected tradition, and Mother is very traditional.
But Joe, I still have to arrange treatment for your mother. How can I do that without telling her what's going on? How about trying this with me? We'll both go in to see her, and I'll ask her if she'd prefer that the family be told the details of her illness, and if she'd like them to make decisions for her. And if she agrees, then that's how we'll proceed. But Joe, you must understand, if she asks me any questions about her diagnosis or prognosis, I'm obliged to answer them.
Of course you must answer. That's also respectful.
Okay, shall we go talk with your mother now?
Okay, so, I like to just
As
go-
the second scenario illustrates, being receptive to family concerns and exploring underlying interests, such as the hopes,
This is why I don't do it on YouTube, because I cut it off on my slides. So, in the first one, we saw a lot of communication issues just in general, right? She's busy, she doesn't want to take time, she cuts them off, she pushes them out of the way. And then in the second one, it's a doctor, it's not a paramedic, and so we're gonna make some changes there, right? We can take the person to a different room, but we don't have like a special room to go to. And we can't just go like sit down with the family if the patient is still actively in an emergency situation, right? These videos are always made in such a way that like it's a doctor, the patient's just at the hospital. They don't have like special paramedic videos. So, what do you guys think? Solve all your questions. Yeah.
The second one is really well done, in my opinion, at least, like they affirmed with the son, what he wants for the culture, and then also applied to like the protocols of leaving their own patient and stuff. So ask the patient in advance if they agree with it, and the son agrees with it, then they as a family, their extended family, or the immediate family can take care of it. I'm not sure that's appropriate.
Well, I'm surprised that no one has thrown their hand up talking about consent yet. Because usually every year people are like, what consent? Dave said. So, in the second video there, she makes it very clear, we'll both go in and I will ask my patient if that's what she wants. So if the patient says, I don't want to know anything, I want them to, you talk to them, then sure, you can say, well, you have gotten, her express is that you speak to the family and the family makes the decisions, right? And then she also tells him, if she asks me, what do I have to tell her. And he understands that. Family members that you meet on the road may not be so understanding as these really, really poorly, I know they're not like Oscar-winning actors, they're like whoever they can hit the extras and stuff that need work. It's always such poor acting. But you may find the family maybe isn't listening as well, right? They're like, no, you can't tell her. You have to be very clear. If they flat out ask this question, if they ask straight out what it is. Now, as a paramedic, in this situation where this family member told me she has stage 4 lung cancer and doesn't know, don't tell her. In my head, I'm like, then why'd you tell me? Like, I could have just gone to the hospital and not being ignorant to this. So now I know she has stage 4 lung cancer. Am I obliged to tell her? I haven't seen any documentation that she has stage 4 lung cancer, right? I didn't see x-rays, I didn't see blood work, I didn't see any documentation that showed that. I just had a family member tell me that. So do I know for certain that it's true? Not really. So I will say things like, seems like you're having difficulty breathing, you need to go to the hospital because of that, because you're having trouble breathing. And then at the hospital, I will say, like, she has stage 4 lung cancer and doesn't know because the family hasn't told her, and the nurses will be like, what? Because that's generally always the response you get from the nurses. And then they'll be like, okay. And then the doctor will come and talk to the family, and maybe a social worker will come and talk to the family. All of the people that are involved in that circle of care who have gone to school a lot longer than you to deal with these situations better than you do. Are we good on that? You can't lie to the patient, but also, like, if the patient says, do you think, you know, what might be wrong with me? You're like, yeah, I think I might know, like, but I'm not sure. Because I'm not. Have we all gotten to the point in this class yet where we understand it's all semantics? Yeah. Semantics are your friend. Don't lie to them, but also don't yeah. Tell the truth. Truth can be, yeah.
You gotta write it as is on these here, like page family instead of don't know long answers on here.
In medical history, I would still write like lung CA. I've been told by family that that's a thing, so it happens more often than you would think. So often. And you know, we talked about biases and cultural safety and all of this stuff, and I will tell you that this is one that I have really a hard time managing in my own brain, because I am from a culture and was brought up in a culture where you tell the person what's wrong with them. And so the first time I ever saw this, I was like, wait, what? What? People don't want to know? What? And it took me a long time to understand this aspect, and this is one that I have struggled with, but it is what it is. So, talk about some of the responses from your textbook in terms of therapeutic response to people with life-altering illnesses. So this isn't just palliative care, it's all the life-altering illnesses. These are responses from people who are receiving bad news. So, honestly, I just think about it again in terms of death notification or grief. So, be ready for mood swings. People are unpredictable at the best of times. Sometimes they're having their worst moments, and they're going to be even more volatile. I have had a family member decide that was the moment to tell the person that they had cancer. Not well. No. Yeah, so a lot of mood swings. They were quite volatile, and they were also quite frustrated that the family member hadn't told them earlier. Right? So, again, we talk about your educators, you be all of these things. You're also oftentimes considered a mediator, and families are like, oh, I have nice paramedics here. I think it's time to say the thing I've been wanting to say. like, cool. So have an open discussion about the feelings. You can't really blame them for this. Like, this is what they're going through at the moment. You have to accept them as they are. And it's not the first thing you want to talk about. Like, let's say they've known about the illness for a while. It's not the first thing you're going to focus in on entirely. But it is something you can discuss, let them vent once you have a rapport with them, if that's what they want to do. A lot of the family members want to talk about their fears and frustrations. Fears and frustrations from family members. We also check them for caregiver burnout. If they are the primary caregiver to this person, we check, we have, even for like a lift assist, right? For someone who has maybe ALS or something like that, we go in, we are looking around their house, we're looking to see, are they thriving, are they okay, how's everything going with this, and then we can ask them things like, have you had the community care access program come in? They're nurses that come in, they assess your house, they can give you extra bars in the shower, they can give you a toilet, seats, they can give you bars for next to your bed, and maybe they're like, yeah, they did come in like a while ago, okay, well has there been, have they gotten worse since then? Is their mobility worse? Well, yeah, it is. Okay, well, why don't I do a referral to have them come back, and I'll say you need more support. So paramedic referral program is fantastic. And even if someone has had a lift assist 2 days ago and a referral went in then, if I'm back 2 days later, I put in another referral. Because now that CCAC can see that like we are here frequently and many paramedics are saying that they need more care. One of the care that we look for is caregiver burnout. So they can get respite care, which is something like they get a night off. So a nurse comes in for a few hours so that the caregiver can leave and have a moment alone, do whatever they need to do so they can come back and be more prepared to actually give care to that person. We always want to let them make decisions if we can, right? So if it's a decision that they can make, things like if they've had a fall, how can we best help you get up? You know how to get yourself up. If this is something that they fall frequently, they will tell you. They'll say, no, you can't lift on this side, you can't do this, and then you just do it. So help them as much as you can. Back to educating the families. We try to get them to focus on the present and not too stressed about what's coming up, but they may want to talk about that. And that is essentially it. We're not watching that video. No. And the thing with these patients is that management varies. So I can't really tell you, here's how you manage life-altering illness patient. We can't do that. But you know, a lot of these patients will be lift assists, or they'll have, if they're palliative, they'll be in that moment of the dips. Those dips, especially for the COPD heart failure ones, those are true emergencies. We're not fiddling around on scene. It's maybe afterwards, you're talking to the family a bit. So take a break and come back and we'll start talking about all of the life stages.
Did you see that?
fingers up and getting it up. And we're gonna keep it in
Are you guys chilly?
You know what it is? That fucker. Air fan. Oh,
Makes
so
sense.
stupid.
Bum, bum,
Oh,
bum.
why is it cold? I need to go sit somewhere else. That's really cold.
It just doesn't look so. You like take the two chopsticks. I mean, I guess it makes sense. And just feel like. Oh, so it's like easier for them to use chopsticks. Or is it like a little rubber band? Oh, those things. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I'm a caveman. I choose my hands. Oh yeah, we put one. You feel this okay? Oh, how's your voice? That's cool. Where do you get all your stickers? Some of these, like the curvy ones. Oh, the panda with the guns. Amy, no funky music today?
Couldn't think of anything that was.
You're not gonna put like old 50s music?
It's my life. This is about children too.
All about kids. The kiddos. Or Baby Shark.
Baby Shark, not Baby Shark. Please, no.
Oh, you don't want to hear Baby Shark? No? I have no idea where it's even from. I just don't know. Is it like a kid show? Aren't you a kid? Leave in the know. I'm an adult. So it's supposed to be the on September 8th, but I didn't.
I know, I'll find it.
You look like you're resetting. Are you set? Are you resetting? I like that right now.
I'll pass on that.
For random practice, we enjoy I just pulled this out and it smells very nice. This one? Yeah. Imagine if you would have it shouldn't have. Want to bring it home?
Arian. And why are you moving?
I want to watch a movie. I want to watch a movie on my phone.
What movie?
One in Italy. Wow, because that's only gets to first. And then we go to China. If you're already going to Italy, like, why did you get some to the concert too? Why did you have to do that? It's pretty cool. Yeah. My wife is going. She's been to like all of the Taylor Swift classes. That's why Clara harassed me all the time. It's like Amy's a Swift fan.
I recommended just going to Italy for a couple days just for a concert. And leaving. So it's like a plane ticket in Italy is also expensive. Yeah.
It's like my wife's work partner's husband's sister's mother got tickets. And so it's like my wife's partner,
really expensive.
her husband, and her sister, his sister, and then one more, so my wife's and they're trying to convince the husband to not go. I don't know, that'd be fun. And they're like,
I love the indignation.
so I was like, oh, I would go. And I was like, no, she's gonna take it. Oh, like I see why.
I saw Rihanna live. This was like maybe 5 or 10 years ago. Like she was doing a thing that she had like a feeling platform. And I was like, when I see her mouse and she's like dancing like right above me. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And I think I love Jay-Z.
Like 5 minutes just sing one scene.
Showed up. What the hell? Oh, that's so cool. What? Like, for free, she had front row seats. $1,000 worth.
also would go to the sports complex.
That's so cool.
Okay, let us do therapeutics across the lifespan. Depending on how it's going, we might just work through it and then maybe finish a bit early. We'll see. Okay, so therapeutics across the lifespan, as you guess, goes all the way from birth to death. And as paramedics, we actually are literally there for all of the life stages. We deliver babies, and we are there when people die. So we encounter as paramedics people from all walks of life, from cradle to grave, from birth to death. So first, we're going to talk basically some welcome development theorists. Those of you that have completed degrees or other education have likely heard of these people before. Fantastic for you to test my ability later. Then I also did post some videos, some YouTube videos that kind of work for you, maybe help reinforce some of it. Because for certain, if we were talking about it, it's likely going to be on the test. So if you want to go, it's in the reading section for YouTube videos. You don't have to I love it. Okay, so Piaget was a Swiss biologist, a psychologist, and had a huge influence on child cognitive development. Most of our school system is actually based on his thoughts, and education was just a huge thing in his mind. He's quoted as saying, "Only education is capable of saving our societies from possible collapse, whether violent or gradual." Many people would say that right now we're in a gradual collapse. TikTok's basically why.
Damn TikTok.
You know, it's that people are doing studies on TikTok that are finding that it is basically the collapse of our society. But sure, someone asked me last night, they're like, oh.
But there's funny videos.
I know. We don't have a lot of time for these fun side stories, but there is a nurse that works at one of the hospitals in my region whose name, like her nickname is TikTok nurse, because she is literally got a job there and started doing TikToks. And in one of them, very early on, the TikTok she was saying, she's like, I'm working here to hook up with paramedics and firefighters. Nice. And like literally, if my friend was over last night and he had hooked up with her, and I was like, oh no. Why did you hook up with TikTok nurse? And he's like, listen, I wasn't thinking, and I was like, okay. So anyway, word of warning, maybe don't do those things. Right. Society's collapsing, TikTok nurses causing it. So his theory of cognitive development states that motor activity, including concrete objects, results in the development of mental functioning. So your cognitive means are your ability to think, reason rationally. And so his thoughts are that as your cognitive development progresses, children will gain insights, problem-solving abilities, grasp abstract concepts. So a children's logic and thinking is going to be very different than an adult's. I actually said to my wife recently, she's 8 years old, she does not have a fully functioning prefrontal cortex. Because my wife said, why is she like this? I said, she's not an adult. She's not there yet. So sometimes children will do things a certain way because they don't have that fully logical, rational thinking yet. So sometimes you see things like children can be really blind to the come up with like the funniest ideas about the world. They even had a show about it, right? Like the things children say or something. But I was talking and she overheard me, and I was talking about a problem with our drain, and she was like, "Fix it, Beck." And I was like, "What do you mean fix it?" And she's like, "You have a problem, then fix it." And I was like, "Right, I'm not a plumber. I don't know how to fix that problem. I can do basic things, but I can't do this." And she's like, "Well, why? It's not working, so fix it." But in the rational mind of a child, they think that you can do everything, right? They're like, "Oh, you know how to do things, so you fix it." I'm like, "No, I fix bodies, not plumbing." Or then she's like, "Oh, then if it's broken and you can't fix it, then just buy a new one and put it in." okay, it's not that it's not fixable, so then we had to learn what a plumber was. So he thinks that cognition progresses through adaptation. So the adaptation happens in two ways. You have assimilation and accommodation. In assimilation, your interpretation of events is in terms of your existing cognitive knowledge. So they take in information, they process what they already know, and that will change over time from month to month. Every year that goes by, they know more and more, and so they can assimilate more, and they have more knowledge to do that assimilation with. Whereas accommodation is changing your cognitive knowledge to make sense of the environment. So, you all know what a cat is. You all know what a dog is. A child maybe has seen a cat before. They know what a cat is. And then they see a dog, and they say, cat. That's a big cat. Because it has 4 legs, 2 ears, and a tail. And they're like, oh, it's a cat. So that is them taking what they know and assigning it value. It's the same as like a horse versus a zebra. So a zebra looks a lot like a horse, but it has stripes. So they'll say, oh, horse. Like, no, it's a zebra. They're like, why? It looks like a horse with stripes. And they're like, yes, that makes it a zebra. And they're like, why? So that's kind of where he was coming from with the idea of those things. And so furthering this, cognitive development comes from interaction with the environment. The child will use assimilation and accommodation. And that you should not give kids things, you should not give them tasks that are beyond what they currently can handle. So this is why we have things like grades and levels. Similarly, if I threw you into a semester 4 scenario and told you, go for it, how well do you think you're going to do? No. You have not learned how to handle that situation, so we can't give that to you. That's why we have all of the scaffolding that we do, and that's why we've laid out your courses the way we've laid them out, so that you can actually be successful when we bring you to that end. So that's why we tell you this semester, your OSCEs, you're expected to walk in and do your thing and do your assessment and take like a set of vitals, 2 sets, could be better. Next semester, what you were expected to do in 15 minutes now, you're expected to do in like far less time, right? And so we keep adding things, and in your head, you're like, oh no, I can't, there's no way. You can. You will get faster as your cognitive load decreases with this new stuff. So what's the point of talking about all of this stuff? If we have a working knowledge of the developmental periods that he came up with, then we can actually communicate on a level that matches a child's development and understanding. In understanding that we cannot give them something that they cannot handle, we cannot ask them questions and expect an answer that they cannot rationally answer at the time. So we've got a bunch of charts now. I know you love charts. Right, well, you gotta learn the charts. So I shrunk it down dramatically. Again, we could do classes and classes and classes on growth and theorists. We're not going to. So this is the paramedic version of what you need to know. Basically what he was saying. So there's cognitive activities that happen at each stage. How can we approach people? How can we engage with them? So it starts off very simple. In the sensory motor period, which is birth to 2 years, you've got reflexes. So there's a sucking reflex. They're learning hand-to-mouth coordination. It's really amazing to watch them try to put something in their mouth and hit their forehead. It's very cute. There's that hand-eye coordination as well. A sense of organization within the world. Newborns will look at their hands without even realizing that they are their own hands. They don't comprehend that when they're little. And so they start to develop that sense of coordination, and that they'll get things by screaming. They'll start to develop speech. So the therapeutic approach here is we want to support the infant securely. Keep objects out of their reach. Everything goes in the mouth. Everything. Literally all the things. I assure you, you're going to put the leads on the baby, and the baby's going to take it and rip it off and put it in its mouth. I've had to tell so many parents, like, don't, like, they're very clean, don't worry, like, because they're like looking at this wire, like, ugh, and take it out of their mouth, put it back on, try not to let them get it again. We smile a lot, we over-exaggerate our smiles. Babies and little kids do much better with that, and we talk to them. We use a lot of animated discussion and expressions. We change our tone of voice. I'm not telling you to baby talk them. I'm not like, oh, da. But we do look at them and we're like, hello, how are you? And you exaggerate your faces. That higher pitched tone, they actually respond better to it. And it does well. So psychology studies have shown that children actually need this. So there was a study that was done where parents would have no expression and no smile towards infants, and it actually distressed the children. And they grew up to be not as successful as the ones that were loved and cared for and had smiles. They just don't develop as well. So we're going to see some 2 to 6 year olds in videos later. So they have an incomplete grasp of quantity, weight, length, and volume. They can't really understand reality as it's changing. And their thought is it's irreversible. So we're going to give them simple commands. We're going to use some games and imagery. It's appropriate, like pictures and dolls. We may show them something. So a lot of services have stuffed animals. And so you can use that stuffed animal to show them, like, I'm going to listen to your chest, like this. And sometimes I'll do it on myself. Sometimes mom or dad will get involved and I'll be like, look, it's okay. Now we listen to your chest. They'll probably still scream, but some of them get by better. And we're going to speak in soft, engaging tones similar to infants. Between 7 and 11, we have the concrete operational period. So they begin to think more logically, but are very concrete in their thinking. They don't really have abstract thinking yet. We use praise and reward here. Allow them to make decisions. Again, this is as appropriate. You can't let them make every decision, right? So needle in your left or right arm. Let them pick what arm they're going to use, but not like, do you want the needle? Because the answer is no. It empowers them and lets them have some feeling of control, but within the limits that we have. 12 years onward is the formal operational period. This is where abstract thinking starts. They can easily conserve and think logically. We don't really have anything written specifically in your Thera textbook, but we're going to speak later about it. So we have Pavlov and Skinner. Yeah.
Irreversible. Or thoughts are.
They cannot comprehend. Like they will think something, and then that is what it's going to be. It's hard to change that thought. So Pavlov, many of you have all probably heard of Pavlov. He's famous for his dog and bell experiment. It's classical conditioning. So the idea is that there's an unconditioned stimuli, creates an unconditioned response, and then we condition it for a conditioned response, and then the conditioned stimuli will give a conditioned response. So Pavlov took a dog, and rang the bell. And every time he rang the bell, he gave the dog food. And over and over and over. Ding, ring the bell, food. Ding, ring the bell, food. Eventually, the bell became associated as a conditioned stimuli to create the response, and the response was salivation. So, if a dog, the unconditioned stimuli is food, dogs see food, they start salivating. Then, every time they see food, we ring the bell, that's the conditioning. We ring the bell when there's food, and then the response is that they salivate. And then we take away the food, and now ring the bell, so they just get the bell, but they also still salivate. So conditioned, classical conditioning. So this is associations that are made between involuntary responses to a stimuli. You cannot control it. You now, every time that happens, that's the response you get. So we will talk about how classical conditioning works in other ways than just Pavlov and his dog. So let's say you go to a call where someone has a tragic event. The grandmother dies. And this creates anxiety. On that day, there was a lot of sirens. Like fire showed up, paramedics showed up, all the sirens were happening. So at the tragic event, we know that tragic events cause anxiety anyway, like unconditioned responses. But conditioning was the tragic event and the siren sound created anxiety. And now every time that person hears a siren, they get anxiety. So they're just walking down the street, they hear a siren, and they have anxiety. That is an example of classical conditioning. I have a better example for you. coming up to the Spear of the Unknown Oskies. Oskies cause anxiety. Great. You go to the Oskies, and just so you know, there's a bike horn, a honka honka one. It's like honka 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 honka, and it's really loud. So at the beginning and end of every scenario that you do, that goes off. Okay, that is Oski plus siren. Okay, Oski plus horn causes anxiety, and then for years and years after you graduate, someone will be driving down the road with the honka honka bike horn, and you're like, oh god. It actually took me a good 4 to 5 years after I started working here to be okay listening to the horn, because I was so conditioned having been a student. Dave loves it, and keeps it locked away. One year he got in so much trouble he wasn't allowed to use it for a bit. Because again, why do you make an atrium above a library during exams? So Skinner, he agreed with Pavlov about classical conditioning, but said there was also operant conditioning that plays a larger role in explaining our actual behavior. So the distinction between the two is that in operant conditioning, the response precedes the reward. So if we recall our video clip about methamphetamine, a rat pushes a lever and is rewarded with a pleasurable dose of drug. The rat wants to push the lever again. So he's saying that in operant conditioning, the desired response precedes or becomes before the reward, and that's how we ideally want to shape human behavior. So we don't want to constantly reward people. We want them to just do what we want them to do, and eventually what society wants them to do before they get the reward. So one of the easiest ways to remember the differences between classical and operant conditioning is to focus on whether the behavior is involuntary or voluntary. So in classical conditioning, it is an involuntary response. Think food, saliva, bell, saliva. It's involuntary. In operant conditioning, it is a voluntary response and consequence. So in operant conditioning, the learner is rewarded with incentives, whereas in classical conditioning, there's no incentives. So, reasonably, Skinner says children learn through consistent rewarding of desirable behavior. So there's positive reinforcement. So you get the desired behavior, you give a pleasant reward. And then there's negative reinforcement, which is the desired behavior followed by taking away an unpleasant stimuli. People have a bit of a difficulty with this one. So let's say that you were grounded, which is a punishment, by the way. So your parents have punished you with being grounded. And the negative reinforcement would be now you're having a desired behavior. So you're being so good while you're grounded that they say, you know what, you're not grounded anymore because you've shown so much remorse and you're being so good. So they do something like they steal your video games, but now they've given them back to you. That's a negative reinforcement. Because let's say you did your homework assignment, so they gave you back your video games. So children need their desired behavior to be reinforced through frequent praise and encouragement. Rewarding brave children when they hold still for blood pressure or something like a needle. We do a lot of positive reinforcement as paramedics. We do not do punishment or negative reinforcement. I took away your parents until you're good, kid. No, we don't. We just use a lot of positive reinforcement as paramedics. If they comply with their Ventolin treatment, and we want to give them a lot of praise and reward, we give them the stuffed animals, and we just try to make everything better for them. This also helps the next healthcare provider that they ever encounter, because the child will already be conditioned to respond with the desired behaviors. We actually see this when a kid has something like asthma and they call 911 fairly frequently. We're always worried that we have to go do the asthma treatment and they're not going to take it. And then when they take it really well, the parents will be like, yeah, the paramedics that have come before have been so nice. And I'm like, versus if you show up and you're like, stay down, let me do this. The next paramedic that's going to come by is going to be like, why? Why do you have to be like this? You know, the child's traumatized. And then we have Lawrence Colbert. He's He's an American psychologist who then developed the theory of moral development. So he's saying moral development depends on thinking and problem solving which is stimulated in the child. And the idea is that individuals acquire a sense of justice through a sequence of stages related to cognitive development. So it parallels Piaget's theory. And so progress depends on the person's cognitive development and exposure to different ideas and experiences. We're not saying that any of these are wrong or that they're all entirely right. I would say that most of them are probably right, more right, and a mix of all of them. So again, we have another abbreviated version here for you. There's a very good video about this that you can find. But we have the pre-conventional level. So in the pre-conventional level, you're just trying to avoid punishment. If you get in trouble, it's wrong. If you don't get in trouble, it's fine. It's okay. It is where your mind is going. So your morality here is judged by direct consequences. That is to say, if you do something wrong and don't get in trouble for it, you will think that it's okay to do. Like your morals will now tell you that it's okay to do. In the conventional level, the child learns that there's value in being good. So it's not about getting disciplined or not, it's about someone will approve of me doing this, which tends to guide the child into making those decisions. Now we're seeing that approval is more important than the reward. In the post-conventional level, you have a dilemma there is that people start to behave according to whatever standards of self or society or their faith. So your actions are determined by your individual rights and standards. So things like civil law, your individual principles shape your morality here. So it's not about reward or punishment or approval, it's about what you believe is right and wrong. Erik Erikson, I always love that name. A. Aronson kind of thing. Erik Erikson was born in Germany. He did work with Freud. He thought psychological development was actually a continuum of stages, every one of them presenting in crisis. So, crisis is conflict between person and society or social institutions. Crisis is motivating your factors behind your behavior. And we have yet another large diagram, graph, whatever you want to call it. Here, also, there is another video, which may be helpful to you. But there's a lot more to this chart and this theory. We're summarizing it, paramedic need only. So, birth to about 17 months, he says, is trust versus mistrust. There's rapid development here. You've got physical, social skills. You're controlling your eyes. You're recognizing your parents. You're smiling. You're vocalizing. So here, you have to learn to either trust or mistrust. That is the dilemma that is presented to you during this period of time. So depending on how you develop, depends on the experiences that you have and whether you learn to trust or mistrust. So we want to hold infants securely, have familiar voices and faces in the caring plan. So usually I actually will have the parents hold them if they can. Keep objects away that can be swallowed. Again, smiling, we talked about this. In the autonomy versus shame and doubt, this is your 18 months to 3 years. You're starting to walk, assemble short sentences, feed yourself. Rituals are very, very important here because you want your autonomy. So we have simple commands, rewarding positive behavior. So high fives. It says try to maintain routines. That's not for paramedics. We are going to screw up all their routines. That is, we are just coming in, just recognizing that we're breaking their routines and that's going to be hard for them. And you can talk to the child directly. Again, they're not going to be able to answer a lot of questions, but you can talk to them. Initiative versus guilt is your 3 to 6 years. So you get some initiative. You start to want to dress yourself. You get simple cause and effect explanations. You still need your primary caregiver's presence, etc. So we're going to give simple explanations and commands. They respond well to drawing and play, demonstrate procedures on a doll, things like that. Industry versus inferiority. So 6 to 11 years. They start to have responsibility for their own actions. They will start to accept authority outside of their own home. So previous to this, authority was basically from your own home. Your parents were like gods, they knew everything, nothing could possibly, like your parents could not possibly be wrong about anything. this is the age group where they start to question that a little bit. They start to understand, maybe they start believing their teacher more than their parents. In a lot of cases, that may be a good thing. I remember going to like zoos and stuff when my daughter was little, and my degree is like part of it is in zoology, and I'm standing there, and other parents are asking, like the kid will be like, why does the thing, whatever animal, do this? And they're like, oh, and they start saying something totally wrong, and I'm like, when you don't know the answer to something, can't you just be like, you know what, I don't know, why don't we look that up? Like, why parents like this? And so I would stand there and think to myself, like, no, that's not it. Although, you know, growing up myself, my mother's answer was always like, that's how God made them. And I was like, that didn't tell me. No, that was the answer to everything that she didn't know the answer to. And I was like, okay. Okay, so at 6 to 11, we're going to give encouragement, praise where appropriate, explain things at the children's level of understanding. And again, that's that important piece where they can think, they can understand things, but you can't give them something that's above the complexity of their understanding and knowledge. And we give them choices where appropriate. Between 12 and 18 years, this is where onset of puberty, there's an interest in the opposite sex. Honestly, this is what the textbook says. Just accept what the textbook says and understand I need to change it. Concern with morality, ethics. Your peer group is important. Emancipation from family begins, meaning this is where you start to say, peace, bye, I'm gonna go live my own life now. And so, you gotta give privacy. So there's a lot of body modesty during this period of time. Address their concerns about the future, body image, activity levels, as needed. 19 to 40 years is intimacy versus isolation. So the dilemma here is, and think about this age group, it's a lot about, do you find the person you're going to be with, or do you become isolated? That is the dilemma there. So you develop intimate relationships, or you feel isolated. You have interests, there's career development, mate searching, establishing home and family. And so, again, these are adults. You know how to manage adults. We've talked about that all semester. Provide them options, give benefits and explanations, ability to make a good decision regarding their own health care. Between 40 and 65 years is your generativity versus stagnation. So these are your really, really strong, generating, productive years. Usually you're at the height of whatever career you're in, and either that or you stagnate. So financially productive, your health maintenance is important. We need to learn how to cope with life stresses. So we want to listen to them carefully, give them choices, again, as we can. Acknowledge concern for the next generation. Oh, my stepfather's in this right now, and he's like, oh, I don't know about the kids these days. And I'm like, yeah, I acknowledge your concern for the future generation.
Back in my day.
Yeah. I love him, but I do frequently want to be like, okay, boomer. Ego, integrity versus despair is your 65 to death. So, do you fall into despair, or do you maintain your integrity? You are retired, there's a lot of fear of death here, and all that loss that we talk about so frequently. So, it says to address with full name. Generally, I ask them what their name is, they tell me, and then you can say something like, what would you like me to call you? And they'll tell you. Very frequently now, I'm noticing a lot of the elderly people actually just want you to call them by their first name, but some of them will get very angry if you call them Alexis, and they're like, it's Mrs. Smith. And you're like, okay, no problem. Allow them to make decisions as they can. Avoid patronizing terms. So important. You're not calling these people dear, sweetie, honey. Literally, I worked with this guy once who went to an elderly gentleman, and the guy I was working with was kind of new. He was like, all right, bud, we're going to get you up on the stretcher. And the gentleman goes, I am not your bud. I went to war so you could be free in this country, but not so you could be here and be a little shit. And I was like, well, wait, sir. So be cautious, right? Those are, in terms of endearment for some people, they're also very patronizing. You're treating them like they're a 5-year-old, right? I call my daughter sweetie. I don't think I'm gonna do that when she's 16. And I definitely wouldn't do it to someone who's like 60, but it happens so often. Okay, so we can take a really short break and then do this, or we can plow through it. It's up to you. I hear plowing through it. Okay, good. So infants, and a lot of this is stuff we've already like kind of talked about, alluded to, right? So you can't communicate with them. There's a lot of opportunities to assess them. Everyone is scared about working with little babies. Everything here is happening really, really fast. There's changes almost daily in the early months. They can't really communicate their needs. They're totally reliant on their caregivers. Their caregivers will know if their caregivers say this isn't like them. You need to understand that this isn't like them and take them to the hospital.
New babies aren't quite sure what happens to objects when they leave their sight. Sky's mom keeps disappearing and reappearing. No wonder peekaboo is so much fun. During their first year, however, infants will learn an important concept: object permanence. Everything has a life of its own, even if it is out of sight.
At Maya's age, babies know to look for the object, but they might not have everything else straight. 10-month-old Simon is about to make a classic mistake, known as the A not B error. Although he watched us place the toy plane under the white cloth, he'll look for it where he last found it, not where he watched us hide it. If a 1-year-old can't find an object they want right away, they're likely to give up looking.
So object permanence is really fun when they don't have it. Because they literally this is that peekaboo age, right? Like you do this and you are gone, like forever. And then when you come back, or you go underneath, you're like, ah! And they're like, oh my God, you came back! Like they actually literally think that you're gone. So it can be a good game to play with little kids. But once they get past the peekaboo stage, where they're like, yeah, that's nice. It doesn't work anymore. And then that A not B error is like the kids saw him put it underneath, like I put it on the green one. Now I put it on the white one. The kid's like, it's under the green one. They make that error a lot. It's not really relating to paramedicine, just understanding that that's the cognitive development at that age. So comfort and safety are really the main concerns. And we're going to speak in soft tones and smile. If you don't have a bear, something like that, you can use keys, you can use your flashlight, and you can use what toys. So I made the mistake as a PCP student of asking a parent to I was like, does he have like a favorite toy? Thinking he was going to come back with like a stuffed animal or something. The dad came back with a miniature hockey stick. And I was trying to put this kid in a KED, and literally, I was like, oh, not the hockey stick. Like, kids were like trying to smack me. I'm like, no, like a stuffed animal or anything. So now I've changed what I asked to, does he have a favorite stuffed animal or a blanket or something? And then, continuing on, we can let the parents hold them during assessments or during treatment. I'll let the parents sit close in the ambulance. So in the ambulance, you know that there's where the stretcher is, the kid is on the stretcher. There's a jump seat, and then there's behind the stretcher, and then there's a seat next to the stretcher. I let the parents sit in the seat next to the stretcher if the child is stable enough. They just have to have their seatbelt on, make sure they keep it on, and then I might sit at the end of on the floor, at the end of the stretcher, and that's where the monitor is, then I can keep eyes on the child. It depends on the situation, it depends on how sick the child is. If the child is very, very sick, very sick, the parents are not going in the back of the truck. If you are thinking you might have to do CPR on this child, do not put the parents in the back of the truck. They're going to freak out, and it's going to be way too much. Do put them in the front of the cab with the driver, or don't bring them in the truck at all. Have someone else, have police drive them. We've done that quite frequently. Parents are a primary information source. Explain things to the parents and caregivers because they get very nervous about what's happening, and a lot of education here. So children, I hope you like kids. Like everyone's like, no, I hate them. You are going to have a lot of calls for children. So you need to learn to embrace it. It is a valuable skill to have to be able to talk to kids. Yeah.
What do like call it?
They they break things, break themselves a lot. They get sick a lot. Parents call because their croup is very frequent. Just upper respiratory tract infections, fever, they're vomiting, they have diarrhea. Kids get sick a lot. A lot more than adults. They do not have a good immune system. They bring all the germs home. Expect if you have your own children to be sick a lot in the first couple of years of their life and call off sick a lot from work. So in the earlier stages of childhood, we still have that rapid growth physically, socially, cognitively. There's a lot of fear and anxiety of what's not understood. So we come back around again to the fear of the unknown. Children don't know. They've not been in an ambulance before. You're scary. You're in a uniform that's navy blue or black. You look like a police officer. What is this? What is all this happening? And so they don't like you. And so you have to make them like you. And they also don't really know why they feel terrible, right? If that's what's going on that day, or maybe they've broken their arm and they're screaming and crying, and you're there trying to now poke and prod it. They don't like you. You can make them like you. Especially like doing an IV on a kid. Try explaining this. We'll talk about it. So, children just have a harder time being patient because they don't understand what's happening to them. Sometimes they feel like they've done something wrong. Like the reason why they feel sick is because they've done something. And so we want to make sure that they understand that maybe we can talk about the germs, things like that. But rational explanations don't always work with younger children. So let's see about the pre-operational period.
Can you look at these two glasses? Do you think that they have the same amount of juice? You think they have the same? Okay. Now we're going to pour this juice into this glass. Now, do you think that this glass has more juice, this glass has more juice, or do you think that they have the same amount?
That one has more.
This one has more, and why do you think that this one has more?
Because it's taller.
Okay, you ready? Okay. Does this row have more quarters? Does this row have more quarters, or do they have the same?
1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. They're all the same.
They're the same?
5, 5.
Okay. Okay. Does this row have more quarters? Does this row have more, or do they have the same?
This one has more.
That one has more quarters?
Yeah.
Why does this row have more quarters?
Because it's more far away.
It's more far away?
It's like more far away than like that. That's like bigger.
So,
all right, we're going to play a game with the graham crackers, and we're going to share them between me and you, okay? Okay. Do you think that we shared those fairly?
No.
No, why not?
We shared. You have those and I have this.
Well, what if we try this? Okay, can I put this down right there? Now is it fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, why is it?
So this isn't like a dumb kid. Every kid in that age group has that. They don't have concrete thinking about measurement and volumes and quantity yet, so they actually can't understand. I loved it because I would be like, I'd give my daughter like a little tiny bit, and then I'd have like the rest of the chocolate bar, but we both have one piece, so it was fine. And even though my piece of the chocolate bar was like the whole thing. Now she's like, no. So that is what that age group is like. And then we see here an older, in the concrete operational period.
So first we're going to look at these 2 cups right here. Do you think there's the same amount of juice in this glass as there is in that glass? They're even? Okay. So we're going to take the juice from this glass and pour it into this one right here. Okay, so now we're going to look at this glass and that one. So do you think that there's more juice in this glass, more juice in this glass, or do you think that they have the same amount?
Same amount.
Okay, why do you think that they have the same amount?
Just because this is skinny doesn't mean it's not the same amount. It has the same amount of juice in it, but this one is just wider and this one's skinnier, but they have the same amount of juice.
So you can see suddenly the idea of measurement and volume. They're like, oh no, I saw that it was the same amount. So all of this to show that depending on the age the child is when you meet them is going to really determine how you're going to treat them and how you're going to have to talk to them. So if they're less than 2 years of age, we're going to do all of the things that we already talked about, and that physical comfort, security, infants will respond to their parents' voices or familiar voices. Do not create an airway obstruction. Remember I said everything goes in the mouth when you're 2 years old? It goes in the mouth. So do not give them something that they're going to be able to then go in, and now you're doing chest compressions on this choking child. Smile and talk to the infants, and include parents in the treatment plan. Between 2 and 6, we're looking at symbol commands. We use games and imagery as appropriate. A lot of demonstrating on the teddy bears, demoing on dolls. And then we have to talk about appropriate terms, like what is needle versus shot. We have to be honest with them, as we are with all of our patients, or the trust is lost. So I always remember when I took my daughter to the doctor for vaccines when she was about 3 years old, and the doctor was like, okay, like just a little shot, it's not gonna hurt. And she's like, okay, and then the doctor does it, and she's like, ow. And then we get in the car to go home, and she's like, why did the doctor lie to me? I said, what do you mean? She said, the doctor said it wasn't going to hurt, but it hurt. I said, oh, yeah. And she's like, I don't like doctors, they lie. Literally, now you have to undo all of that stuff, right? So now she doesn't trust the doctor, now I've got to do this whole thing. So don't lie to them. You can tell them things like, it's just going to be like a little pink, like whatever word you choose to use. And now, like, I had to take my daughter, she got her flu shot the other day, and she was like, so, flu shot. She's like, needle? And I was like, yeah. And she's like, yeah, but like, it's just going to hurt for a second. I was like, yeah. She's like, and then it'll be okay. I said, well, your arm might hurt for a while. And she's like, okay. I'm like, but like, it's okay, it's just sore. It feels like you worked out a lot. And she was like, okay. Gets the needle. She's like, no, whatever. She's like, yeah, like it hurt for a second. Goes home. A few hours later, she's like, oh, my arm. And I was like, yeah, like I told you. She's like, you did, yeah. And I'm like, this is how you have to treat these tiny beings, because if I just said, no, it'll only hurt for a second, hours later when her arm hurt, she'd be like, you told me it wasn't going to hurt. Do not lie to them. So in this video, I have never seen IV explained better than I see it in this video. This is nurses that work on the pediatric floor and how they actually do this for a preschooler.
Sometimes when kids come into the hospital, they are afraid of what's going to happen when they come in. They're not really sure exactly what's going to happen. So one way that we try to decrease the fear is by explaining the procedures in terms that kids can understand. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to start an IV. An IV is a special straw that the doctor is going to put in your arm to help you get some medicine for your test today. Okay? Now, the way that they do that is the straw goes into your veins. Do you know what your veins are? You can go like this. You see those blue lines? See those little blue lines? Those are your veins. Do you know what your veins do?
Your veins under blood.
Very, very good. And those veins go all over your body. So those veins carry all that blood and oxygen all over your body. So if they put medicine in one of your veins, it goes all over your body. Okay? So the way that they do that, and this is real stuff, so we have to be real careful, okay? The first thing that they do is they put this big, tight rubber band on your arm. And they tie it really, really tight. They do that because if it's really tight right there, all the blood goes into these veins down here and it makes them bigger and easier for them to see. Okay? So they put the big, tight rubber band on. And this is like soap. So they take it, they clean it off real good. And then they take the poke and they say 1, 2, 3 poke, and they put the poke in, but all that stays in is the little straw and the poke comes out here. The poke doesn't stay in. So they take the big tight rubber band off and the straw is still in there. They put some tape on there and then you have your test and then they take the straw out and you get to go home.
Okay, so if you're doing an IV, as PCPs, you are not allowed to give an IV to anyone under the age of 2. You should all smile at that. Yeah. So you have to do 2+. If you're doing an emergency IV, you're not going to be doing this whole spiel, right? Because this child is probably going to be semi-conscious or maybe like not really responsive that much. So obviously you're not going to do this, but if this child needs some sort of medication for some reason, and reasonably I'm thinking about it, I can only think of ACP interventions that would probably need it, where I have time to really talk about the IV, but I'm using this to kind of show you how to explain things to them, because I think she does a fantastic job. Kid seems reasonably okay with it, but I suspect that child's been in and out of the hospital a lot. Most 4-year-olds don't really know what blood is. So now we have to talk about how would you change the following expressions so that a 6-year-old could understand. What would you say cardiac arrest? Heart.
Chest pain.
Heart not working.
Where do you go rest?
Oh, it's dead.
What were some of the other ones? The heart's not working.
Heart goes bye-bye.
Heart attack is not cardiac arrest. No concerns. Okay, nausea. Dizzy. Did you say dizzy? You all have really interesting interpretations of your own health. What about something like
Stomach bad.
yeah, throw up. Most kids know the words throw up, right? They probably don't know vomit. They definitely don't know anything. We don't really want to use the word barf if we can not do it. But if the kid doesn't know throw up, I mean, you could say, do you think you're gonna barf? Some kids say like Rolf. Like maybe at this point, the mom or dad will step in and be like, that's not what we call it. Urine specimen.
Pee in a cup.
Yeah, so we need some of your pee to check for a test or something like that. Vital signs. Check.
Check up.
Yeah, you're just gonna check your heart, check your breathing. You know, all of these are just to make sure your body's working okay. Anesthesia. Sleep. The problem with sleep is if you say we're just gonna put you to sleep. Yeah, because some of them will have had pets, and they will know what the word put to sleep is. The dog went away and never came back. Right, so they don't wanna say put you to sleep. You can say something like, it's gonna make you feel tired, you're gonna have a nap for a little bit, and when you wake up, you'll feel better. We're not doing anesthesia, so it's okay, but, dressing, not the clothes. Like a bandage, yeah, a Band-Aid, a big Band-Aid, injection. I mean, like, she uses the word poke, I think it's a really good word, because needle, they do not like the word needle. Injection, they're not gonna understand, but it does feel like a little poke, right? So poke is a good word for it. Shot, sometimes they may have had needles before and they were called shots, and they may not like them. Disease. Sickness.
Body bag. Body bag.
Germs, sometimes they understand germs. Germs make you feel sick or just sick. Isolation.
Time out.
I guarantee you, like every 5-year-old right now knows the word isolation. They, if they went through COVID, they know the word isolation. But you could say something like, you just need to stay away from other people right now because there's some germs that are making you feel sick, and you don't want to give those germs to someone else. IVs. Yeah, we saw the video. Like, she called it a straw that can put medicine and bring it around your body. So that's a really good one. They can understand that. Blood glucose analysis.
Blood sugar test.
Yeah, so I usually say, like, there's just gonna be a little poke and there's gonna be a drop of blood to test your blood. That's it. They don't really know more than that. So 7 to 11, we're gonna make them make choices when appropriate, explain procedures to a level of understanding. Things like, do you want me to use your left arm or your right arm? And things like, you're a great patient. You stayed so comfortable with that needle. You stayed so still. Awesome. High fives. Like, it seems like so ridiculous, but they actually love it. They like eat it up. They want the reward, the praise, and then they're more likely to do things for you after. Adolescents. Who compromise quite a bit of our patients. The vast majority of them are because they were doing the thing that you see in this picture. So during adolescence, there's a lot of turbulence emotionally. They're very, very self-conscious about body image. Morality is starting to emerge. It may be separate from their parents' morality and their upbringing. They're starting to establish what is right and wrong on their own, really their own sense of morality here. Their peer group is extremely important to them. Very frequently, their peer groups' thoughts and opinions will be more important than their family's thoughts and opinions. There are a lot of concern about future body image and function, especially in times of trauma or illness. So a lot of people, if they get like a big laceration on their face, a lot of times they're going to be like, am I going to have a big scar? Am I going to have a scar on my face? Am I going to be disfigured? So there's just a lot of body image. Get sometimes like, will I still be able to have sex? Like, just all of these, lots of questions about their body and how the future will go for them. So, engaging with them therapeutically, we maintain privacy as much as possible. Obviously, in a massive trauma, we have to expose the wounds. And we're going to cut clothes off, but then we're going to cover them as soon as we can. Right? And this is true for everyone, but at this age group, you're going to go a long way with them to make a point of not exposing too many body parts for too long. And remembering that adolescents have a right without their parents present to be assessed and make decisions. You learned about that, so remember about PHIPAA, give them respect and dignity. They will usually reciprocate the respect and dignity. They'll respond very well to a respectful discussion where you make them feel like they are allowed to make their own decisions, even if they're not. Like, Make them feel like they're heard. Try to use open-ended questions where you can. This next one, don't comment on hairstyle, body piercing, clothes, etc. This needs a huge caveat next to it. So that means to say negatively. So this is more, again, you're all younger, you're all closer to being adolescents. So for you, it may not be as much, but there's a lot of like older paramedics, like parents with teenagers of their own. They may make a comment about someone's body piercings or hairstyle or something, and you've now lost all respect with this patient, right? Because don't make negative comments. You can for sure if you want to make like, oh hey, like I love your hair. You could do that if it's helping you get your rapport. But it means to say you're like, oh, you kids these days are wearing such weird clothes. Don't know. Set limits, be fair and consistent. So discourage any antisocial or obstructive behavior. So if they're sitting there refusing to talk to you, say things to them like, I actually can't help you if you're not going to answer me. I'm here to help you. I want to advocate for you. I want to help you, but if you're going to sit there and not talk, I don't know how I can possibly help you. Personally, I like to avoid dumb questions, like that uncle at the Christmas party who comes up and says things like, so do you have a girlfriend yet? Why would you ask that question? Don't do it. Or like, what are you going to do with your life? Oh, that music playing you're doing. Not going to make you a lot of money. No, yeah, okay, thanks. I really want to talk to you now. So don't say things like that. Also, don't try to use their vocabulary if you're not comfortable. And as I continue aging, this becomes more and more true for me. So there are slang words, I have no idea what they mean. I'm not going to try to use them. I'm also not going to use slang words from when I was little because they're not going to even know what that is. Or it's just going to age me and we're going to be like, oh, no, this paramedic. If you are comfortable with it, and you can relate to them, and you understand the lingo, if you're doing high context language now, you need to be in the know, go for it. But don't look at someone who's 16 and is like the class nerd and probably doesn't know the words being used by the kids that are out smoking cigarettes. You know what I'm saying, right? Because the class nerds will be like, another cool person. I'm not talking to them. So, you have to really read the room. Be very cognizant of reading the room. Generally, if you just don't use the vocabulary, you can't get yourself in trouble. But I'm telling you that you can if you think it'll be okay. I will speak in a different tone of voice with different words to younger people than I would, 60-year-old Mrs. Smith. I'm going to speak to them differently. It's not that I'm being disrespectful to the adolescent, it's just that I know generally you can level with them. So something like if there are parents in the room and it seems like they probably have something they want to say that they don't want their parent to know. So maybe, oh yeah, can you just go get their health card and medications? Thanks so much. And then you turn back and like, okay, real talk, what actually happened today? And they look at you and they're like, okay. Yes, I did allergic cocaine. And you're like, okay, good. Go keep going before she comes back. And that's okay too, right? Adults, they're establishing a career, they're in peak productivity, they're starting to establish and raise their family physically. It's a stable time of life, not much thought of death yet. There's just huge personal responsibilities here, often stressed. This is where we get that sandwich generation as well. And so we want to acknowledge the skills and intelligence. So rather than try to impress them with your vast medical knowledge, acknowledge that they have intelligence as well. And acknowledge their desire for information. This is, again, the education piece. So oftentimes they may not be very knowledgeable about what's happening to them, so try to feel out how much they know, and then tell them like, okay, so your heart's really not beating well right now, it's in a rhythm that is not conducive to life. So we want to do these things for you so that we will fix your heart. But if they tell you that they've got a degree in like science or you're talking to them and you're using the lower level terms and then you clue in, it's reading the room again, you start cluing in that they said something like, a medical term and they know a bit more, you're like, oh, okay, so you start talking a little bit higher. Very frequently, you can tell very quickly that they have some medical knowledge. You're like, oh, like, what do you do? And they're like, oh, I'm a nurse. You're like, great. Okay, so you're in SVT right now. We're gonna cardiovert you. And they're like, yep. And you're like, great, done. So you change the level that you talk at depending on their ability. Recognize stress. So if there's some sort of accident or illness, and they're supposed to be in their prime of life, and suddenly there's this downturn that causes denial, anger, depression. Privacy is also important, so be careful with information. You're not just doling out information to bystanders and family members without them saying it's okay. Don't shout your report out loudly across the room to the triage nurse or to another paramedic. We've mentioned this before, right? You don't just walk into the yard and be like, hey, guess what's up his ass? Happens more often than you think. And then we have the elderly. So the growth and development here, they have a lot of chronic illnesses, they have loss of self-identity, loss of freedom. They feel unneeded, they're bored, especially if they've retired. Loss of personal safety, financial security, health, and then that decreased cognitive function is quite normal. Remembering that the loss of cognitive function can be due to things other than just dementia. It can be head injury, electrolyte imbalances, side effect of drugs that they're taking. They could have had a stroke. So we need to allow extra time to let them speak. They may speak very slowly, extra time to get dressed. So remind yourself too, when we talk about life-altering illnesses, let's say something like a stroke that the person has had, and you're informed that they just have a hard time speaking. They understand everything you're saying. They just have a really long time processing it and then getting the words out. And so it will be painful to sit there and listen, and like you finish talking, you expect this response right away. And they just sit there and look at you. Well, I have pain in my abdomen. And you're like, and you want to just finish the sentence for them? You can't, right? Be respectful, allow them that time, especially if you know that cognitively they're understanding everything you're saying. It's just a processing time problem, and it takes them a while to get it back out. That may be true for more than just strokes as well. Any sort of cognitive decline may have that. Comfort is important at this stage, very, very important. Blanket, number one, blankets. They do not have as much subcutaneous fat as you do. That is why you go to their houses and it is jacked up to so hot in their houses. And they're wearing 3 sweaters. They're like, I'm cold. You're like, yeah, I know. I'm not. So blankets. And that is our number one comfort device. We use them also for positioning. So remember that they don't have a lot of subcutaneous fat. And they may have, you see here in this photo, right? She's kind of like this. We probably all will be when we get old. And so when you put her on the stretcher, she's like this. You have to put cushioning behind her head to make sure she has extra padding so she can actually relax her head on that. And so we'll pad under hollow spaces. So like under the hollow of the back, the hollow of the knees. Just a lot of padding, especially if they have bony spots, like your coccyx, elbows, and the head. Maintain the warmth, so you're gonna turn the heat up a bit in the ambulance, and then they're like, you put like 5 blankets on, like, I'm cold, and you're like, so you're gonna just try to keep them nice and warm. Never, just because their abilities and health have declined, it does not make them any less valuable or less worthy of respect. Do not adopt the SOUP mentality. SOUP stands for stupid, old, useless person. Yeah. Don't adopt that mentality because they're not. Because, like I said earlier, one of them may have fought a war for you. Many of them did, and many of them, and even if they didn't fight the war, many of them have a lot of knowledge. They have that decline, and so a lot of medics just look at them and they're like, that stupid, old, useless person who's just taking up space. If you start talking, they will love to talk to you about their family, about things that they have done. And it is amazing, like, cause like you're taking them to the hospital and this is like a low acuity call, but they do have to go, like they probably need their ankle looked at or something. You can choose to just be the medic that sits there and does the paperwork and doesn't talk to them, or you can be the medic that sits there, maybe you're doing a little bit of paperwork, but you can also ask them about things that, you know, they'll say something like, oh, I grew up in Warsaw. And you're like, oh, my first question is like, what brought you here? Because I'm always very interested. How did you end up here? Some people are like, there's no life over there, so we just came here. And they're like, why are you asking stupid questions? I love those cultures. They give you that attitude like, you're asking those stupid questions, lady. Why wouldn't you come here? And I'm like, and then they'll tell you about like places that they work, things that they did, and it's amazing. And this generation is going to be gone soon, and I'm very happy to listen to a lot of the stories they have because it's astounding sometimes. And we want to start with the formal address, and then if they correct you, they want you to call them whatever, a lady, then you can call them that. So just a lot of extra patience and extra time. So we finished early. See, we're done. So now you got all that extra time to go do your course survey. Yeah. And next week we will finish up. The week after that is, I should probably tell you about your finals. So the finals, did Dave tell you yet? No. So you are going to do, the whole class is writing therapeutics in the morning, and the whole class is writing med legal in the afternoon. So you're still in the exact classrooms you would normally be in, okay? You're still doing that, but you are going to, like, I will be here with you, and I'll be popping upstairs, there'll be some proctors, and so the whole class does the therapeutics in the morning, the whole class does med legal in the afternoon. And I believe, let me confirm here, that you're starting at 9:30. So I gave you an extra hour. And I think it's a 2-hour final.
It's on different days? It's the same day for both?
Of course it is.
I don't know.
Why would they be on different days? I'll confirm with you, but I think it's 9:30 to 11:30, and then, no, it is. Okay, so it's 9:30 to 11:30 here in the classroom, and then your med legal will be in the afternoon in your normal med legal classroom, and you will be, that one does start at 12:30. Yeah. And so, I don't know how long this is, he'll have to talk to you about that, but it is, and then you'll finish. I'm proctoring all of them because Dave is going to be doing third semester OSCEs that day. So Dave's not going to be here. So don't look for Dave to answer your questions. He's not. He's going to be, maybe he'll pop in, I don't know. He's doing the OSCEs for the third semester students. Mike will be in assisting with the proctoring so that I'm not here alone. And did you know when your OSCE is? Yes, so you're available for both because the day that you're not going is the day that you're going to be patient partner. So you have these on Tuesday. What do you have? Wednesday you have anatomy? Right, so you have those, and then Thursday and Friday your OSCEs. What? Why? You could have predicted this.
We know.
You're the college students. You're not the. Is anyone here UTSC? No. So the UTSC people sometimes they get like a problem, and we don't change the schedule for UTSC. They can move around us.
We're not changing for you.
UTSC has a longer exam period, and they can make accommodations. I cannot make like OSCEs are when OSCEs are. Like there's no alternate OSCE day. So it's not meant to raise your blood pressure. It is a lot, but at least you know when they're going to happen. And reminder, that's why I told you not to do your video reviews that weekend. That's why I made it due on the 8th at midnight. So, yes. Do you guys have any other questions about OSCEs?
All that's in 2 weeks from now?
Sorry?
Is
week
it
14.
Oh, on the 14th?
No, week 14.
Week 14, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so 2 weeks.
Yeah. So week 14 is your OSCE week, and then if any of you are exams and OSCEs, if any of you are unsuccessful at the OSCEs, the remedials are on the following week. Wednesday, so Monday, Tuesday are practice days, and Wednesday, Thursday are remedials. But I don't know which day would be, you don't have to be available for both. Other questions? My suggestion to you is to go review the big four that we talked about in the burnout lecture. Yeah? Because they actually are super helpful for OSCEs and for reducing your blood pressure and heart rate. And thinking and in your head, envisioning yourself being successful will help you be successful. Can't stress to you enough the power of positive thinking. Yes. We'll go have a fun week then.